today on The World Today. WannaCry ransomware is set to spread across 150 countries in the world. We'll tell you how to know if you've been hit. South Korea calls out North Korea's claims of launching a new type of rocket capable of carrying a large nuclear warhead. Plus, what could be the fate of a 10-year-old Indian girl who became pregnant after being repeatedly raped by her stepfather. A warm good evening to our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. Welcome to the show. I am Amarachi Ubani. WannaCry ransomware has become the dreaded word in cyberspace after it invaded computer systems around the world. It was only discovered by some vigilant researchers who put the world on alert last week, who are now saying at least 150 countries may have been affected, with fresh attacks reported in Asia and Europe today.
It took only a few hours for the WannaCry ransomware cyber attack to spread across over 150 countries, with governments and businesses in Asia and Europe reporting disruptions over the weekend. The worms locked up hundreds of thousands of computers in numerous organizations in the attack. The attacks have now slowed down, but experts warn of a wider impact to come as employees power up computers and check emails on the first working day of the new week. Experts say it's waiting in emails left unopened over the weekend, like cyber landmines. Already by noon, payment systems at China's energy giant PetroChina were affected, and state media puts 200,000 computers affected around the country. Two major Indonesian hospitals reported they'd been hit. There were also reports from South Korea and Australia. Experts fear the attackers behind WannaCry, or copycats, may develop new versions of the war. On Sunday, Microsoft seemed to acknowledge what researchers already guessed. The worm used a hacking tool built by America's NSA that leaked online in April. Infected computers seem to be mostly out-of-date devices that groups didn't think were worth the price of upgrading, which meant they missed an update from Microsoft that fixed the security gap the worm uses to infect devices. The WannaCry ransomware started taking over users' files on Friday, demanding $300 to restore access. Hundreds of thousands of computers have been affected so far. Computer giant Microsoft says the attack should serve as a wake-up call to update systems and software against future attacks.
Let's talk now to the experts. Joining us is President Cybersecurity Experts Association of Nigeria, Remy Afong. He's in our studio in Abuja. Mr. Afong, I'm glad you could join us on the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
What do we need to know about this malware?
Yeah, the WannaCry ransomware, it's a very serious malware that is infecting systems around the world. As at the last count, based on the report released by Interpol, it has affected about 200,000 systems globally, and about 150 countries in the world have been hit by it. So it's kind of a serious infection on the systems that locks your system, encrypts your system, and demand for payment. Once you are unable to make the payment, you won't be able to have access to your files and your data.
But how dangerous is it? Could your data be destroyed? If you don't pay the $300, could it eventually be destroyed? Will it be lost forever?
Yeah, basically, if you don't have a clean backup of your data, once you are unable to make the payment, and what you need to understand is that the payment is being demanded in Bitcoin, which is the currency being spent in the underworld. So if you are unable to make the payment, that means you lose the data forever, except you have a clean backup, and that's one of the things we are encouraging people, that they should continuously make a backup of their files, so that if this kind of attack happens, they'll be able to restore a clean backup.
And how much damage has already been done by this WannaCry ransomware?
all over the world, it has done a lot of damage. For example, in the United Kingdom, on Friday, we actually grounded most of the hospitals in the United Kingdom, and some of the patients were being sent back home. A lot of organizations that are being hit by this ransomware, they lost access to their data. Individuals lost access to their files. So it has caused a lot of damage. It has disrupted the transaction of business in some places. So the damage is in terms of availability, in terms of confidential information that have been lost is quite massive.
Is there perhaps any lead on who's behind the attack? Can you, I don't know, venture a few guesses?
No, as of now, there's no lead to who are behind the attack, but as time goes on, security researchers and the law enforcement agencies, Interpol, they are looking at how to track down the people behind it. Well, I'm sure, based on threat intelligence taking place in the dark web, we'll be able to track down those behind it, and we'll be able to know about it. But the most important thing, not all about knowing the people behind it, but the most important thing is people to remain safe and remain vigilant so that they don't get hit by the ransomware.
Yeah, but who would most likely be behind, releasing this this ransomware, and what do you think would be the aim of this project?
Basically, in terms of cyber criminals, we have different types of cyber criminals. Some people do it. We have rogue nations that normally do these kind of things. We have cyber criminals that just want to cause disruption in the world. So, but it's still not clear, those that are really behind it, and their aim is not really clear at the moment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Afon, again, for joining us on The World Today. Let's bring it home now. Head of IT IDS Africa, Tony Ogulade, joins me now in the studio. Tony, it's great to have you here on the show. We've talked about this several times, the importance, of protecting your data online and so on. But 150 countries already affected by this ransomware. How much at risk are we in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you, Amara. I think we are at the risk level is very high. Like you mentioned, that's 150 countries already. If you look at the distribution of affected countries, Europe is most affected, and fortunately Africa is the least affected. One can imagine if the scourge were to come home to us in Africa.
How much damage would that do?
Well,
especially in Nigeria.
Imagine everything ICT, our banks, ATMs. It will literally cripple the economy, really.
Wow.
That's if we're least prepared for it.
And how do we prepare for it?
Well,
you know why I asked that question? Because, well, researchers are also saying there is another malware that's in circulation right now, and this one they haven't been able to trace, they haven't been able to stop. So people need to be careful, when they're opening their systems. They talked about emails that haven't been opened over the weekend. They're the ones that could be more at risk of introducing the malware into your system.
Yeah. So let me put it this way: any malware, not just the WannaCry, it thrives on poor digital habits. So when we have poor digital habits, the malware thrives. For instance, the WannaCry, majority of the incidents were without there was no trigger. You didn't need to do anything, So it was that was based on systems left vulnerable. So a lot of people get updates on their phones, on their PCs. It could be a pain. For the pop-ups to come every now and then, update, but I think it's for the better good. So the first thing, let's keep our systems updated. And then the other corporates, emails, phishing emails, clickbait,
Wait, when you talk about system updates, you're talking about protecting your system against virus, right? Or am I right? Or?
So the WannaCry is it's unique to Microsoft systems. That's Windows operating system, and with every solution, there's the opportunity to patch it. Maybe you find out something that wasn't done properly initially, and Windows releases updates every now and then, to address some of these issues. It's interesting to know that the update for this particular string, the WannaCry, was released as far back as March, but a lot of people didn't update their systems. So the world is where it is now, because I guess we have poor digital habits.
I might have to hold you on a bit longer, because how do we identify this malware? How would you know that your system is being attacked?
So typically for ransomware, when the harm is done, they leave you a note on your system saying, hey, you can't use your files anymore.
Oh.
If you need to use your files, pay the ransom.
Oh. Well, Tony Gulade, thank you so much for joining us on The World today. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Amara.